and to protect each other and to always be there for each other. I'm just like, did I just marry this creature in front of all these people? Like,
did I just get married to Pikachu?
It's pretty much what happens.
We are taking a risk here. I am taking a risk specifically.
Oh, what are you doing?
I rebuilt my whole computer today.
No, you're talking
to
about this.
attempt to get the Yoko Taro out of it, the curse of Yoko Taro. Because all the computer parts that we used that one time, we recorded an episode of this podcast called Video Game Podtimism, the Optimist video game variety show where two best friends talk about the wonderful world of gaming. My name is Chase.
And my name is David.
The last time we recorded an episode about Nier Automata, my computer said no thank you and got all of its like brains mixed up and was maybe considering self-actualization and like self-awareness.
Whoa.
And so I've replaced all my parts, sort of unrelated to that, but I'm scared that maybe Yoko Taro has come pre-installed. It's like Norton antivirus, Windows Defender, and the curse of, and the ghost of Yoko Taro comes installed as like malware.
Taro in the machine. It's the new thing.
So there's a non-zero chance that this recording will be like haunted in some way.
I'm ready for it. Hopefully it's like a jolly haunt.
Yeah, if it could at least be like a haunting where like maybe I learned a lesson or like I'm shown my future. Or maybe it's like a Slimer or a Casper sort of thing where like mostly non problems. Although I guess Slimer does slime things. That kind of sucks.
And but like DreamWorks faced ghost.
Yeah, just a little bit of a spunk, you know, a little cockeyed eyebrow. Kind of making me think about stuff back there in the corner while they haunt me.
This is quite the picture you're conjuring here.
Yeah.
This is a children's movie now.
I'm in this weird zone right now where I'm not sure if I'm sick or not. I'm drinking tea and like maybe I am, but it's got my brain in a very strange place. I also took a whole melatonin last night to fall asleep. Man, just really knocked my rocker around.
You hit the melly hard last night.
I did hit the melly because my sleep schedule is jacked, dude. It is so bad right now.
What happened?
I don't know.
Feel sick? Feel sickly?
Not really. I think just like. I think I'm meant for like a 26-hour day, I think is the issue.
You're meant for 2 more hours in the day?
I think so. I feel like there's 2 hours missing in the day, which does make me sound like sort of an interdimensional guy, but
it sure does.
It's not really my thing. It just feels like there's a couple hours missing in there somewhere because I don't really get tired until like midnight. And then when I wake up at 8, my body's like, what the fuck are we doing up already? I'm like, that's a normal amount of time to sleep, body.
I think you're from Mars, Chase. I think this is the answer.
Men are from Mars and gamers are from Mercury. I don't know what that is.
Podcasters are from Mars and gamers are from Mercury.
What does that make us? I guess like space travelers.
That makes us Earthlings, Chase.
I have a lot of video games to talk about this week. Would you mind if I go first?
I didn't know where you wanted me to take that sentence. That it was a proclamation. I was waiting for you to say something else.
It's a high fly ball, and both of us just stared at it in the sky for a while.
Are you going to go for it?
Yeah, is that going to come down?
Yeah, if you want to talk about your games, baby, go for it.
So I feel like this whole year I've just been rushing to not get through, but like keep abreast of all the like wild stuff that is happening and all these new games that are coming out.
Sure.
And like, that's good because it's sort of a feast of quality video games. But even still, I feel like I have neglected my indie game appetite.
All right. So 5 deck building roguelikes coming up right now. Is that right?
There's one of them in there. There's one. No, I've got 3 games for you. And most of these are like smaller team or at least games that I had not heard a bunch of press about.
Okay.
And they're all really good, which is amazing for me.
An indie lover's indie game.
Yeah, so get ready, everybody. People are about to either check their chapter markers to skip ahead 3 video games, or they're like, settle in. Let's get some deck building.
We're taking a deep dive. This is some deep cuts right now.
Yeah, I got a few. So 2 of them are recent releases, but the one that I want to bring up first is like a bit of an not older, but came out a couple of years ago called Jet Lancer.
Okay.
Jet Lancer is this game from this company. They listed themselves as Code Wakers, which cool name.
That is a cool name.
And it is this game that came out in 2020. Totally missed it. just saw like a post about it somewhere. I don't even remember where. It could have been on like Twitter or Discord. I don't know. But it is this like 2D jet dogfighting game, which is like, it's just extremely fun.
You already got me. I love a good dogfight.
Yes, and it actually does something that I think you specifically would appreciate. So the game is split up into these like very bespoke levels, right? Where you'll enter into one of these levels and it's like the goal is very clear. You are just a tiny little jet in the middle of the screen. If you hold R2, it like turns on your boosters. And so you go in whatever sort of direction you're pointing your jet. Very agile. This is not like, it's not a
sim.
It's not a sim. Like you can literally just turn on a dime and go anywhere. But the thing that I think you would like is that it does the thing that Chorus did, the game we talked about maybe a year or so ago, where if you let off the gas, you still have a lot of momentum in how you can move. And so say you're shooting kind of up towards the top right of the screen. If you let off the gas, you'll still go that direction for a while, but you can still independently move your ship around. Like, like where you're pointing. And so it does the same thing with Chorus where you can kind of like drift a little bit, where if there's somebody on your tail or somebody like attacking you from behind, you can just let off the gas, turn around and shoot at them while you're still moving in the same direction. And then either like blast off in the opposite direction or go straight down or something. Like you have a lot of options for how to move. It's just incredibly satisfying. Like if nothing else, I think a game like this really does need to nail how it feels to play it.
Absolutely.
And this one really does, which is, it's such a joy. It feels a lot like kind of like Super Nintendo era game, just like visually and kind of like how it plants the mechanics in the games, where there is some stuff like kind of on the meta layer, like between levels, you're controlling this like airship that you can go to like just choose what other levels to do. And you can customize like the loadout of your jet. So you can have different like weapons or boosters or like you're heavier or lighter or anything like that. And all of those like loadout changes feel significant. Like they feel big compared to, you know, something that's just like, upgrade your damage by 10%. No, it's like you have like a laser beam rather than like a rocket or something.
Oh, love it.
Very, very cool. But the Super Nintendo of it all is just like, it feels like the game is very focused on these kind of like minute to 2 minute long experiences of levels. And like, that's kind of the loop of the game rather than like really complicating it with like a bunch of other stuff or like making these levels super long. It's like, ready, set, go. Okay, fire all the, like, get all the ships out of the air or defend this one tanker. Or one of the cooler things about this game is it also has like almost Armored Core level bosses where there's just like these gigantic monsters that you have to fight that are also like, you know, mechanized weapons, which is all just like really fun. I think that the level of variety that kind of stuff brings is really cool. And just whenever I fire it up, there's always something that I'm like, okay, this is new and cool and fun. Yeah, it's just a wonderful game. I will say it takes a second to get used to how to fly.
Yeah.
Cause it's like, it is kind of tough. And I found myself like getting shot quite a bit cause it does almost turn into like a bullet hell at a certain point where you have like a dodge essentially. So you can give yourself like a couple of invincibility frames if you're just like shooting through a line of missiles or whatever. But it does take a second to kind of get, okay, when do I turn on the jet? When do I kind of turn off the fuel so I can drift a little bit more? How often do I need to be dodging? When is my opening to attack these other like ships and stuff like that? And there's definitely a couple of like, I wouldn't call them brutal, but like intense moments where you kind of have to like get a little bit better at the game. But I will say that once you do get there, it is just like so satisfying to play this game. In the same way that like, you know, if you play a Souls game and it's really fucking hard, but you eventually feel like you're getting better, it's the same idea, right? Where I can feel myself getting or progressing mechanically. That's why people love, you know, Spelunky and stuff. It's like you don't really have anything new at the end of the game. You yourself have just gotten better. Of course, there's changes you can have to your ship, but even still, it's like, I think it is a game that is very focused on like, you need to get good at this too. And so I think there is a payoff there in a lot of ways that the Super Nintendo games had, where there wasn't a lot of like meta progression or anything like that. Not that I'm against meta progression. I typically am. I really like it, but I do think that there's something to be said for this type of game where like the impetus is on you to get good at it.
Sure.
There's a reward at the end of all that. just like visually, I do really appreciate the non-combat stuff. The combat stuff is great. It's like readable and fun and beautiful while you're fighting. It's just like a 2D game, so you're looking at it from essentially the side. But the overworld's really cool too. I think they have this like kind of like cell shaded, not like PS1, but polygonal overworld stuff going on where you control this like aircraft carrier and you can see the interior of it. And it looks like, listen, not to kind of tilt my hand a little bit, but it looks a little Mega Man Legends. So like, I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, that is your jam.
It is. Yeah. So yeah, I was surprised that this game doesn't have more buzz about it because it is just like a very, I wouldn't call it simple, but the pitch of it is a very understandable. And like, I don't think it was particularly expensive either. So like, I kind of would have expected this to get a little bit more interest because it's like really good. Yeah. I don't know. I don't have a lot else to say other than like, shit's really good. Oh, something I do want to mention that is going to be a weird thematic through line with almost every game I bring up today. Is that the soundtrack to this is so good. It is so much fun.
I believe it. I'm watching a video on it of this game right now. It looks pretty cool.
It's really fun. It's really fast. Yeah, the soundtrack is amazing. It's like very math rocky. Reminds me of this band Pliny quite a bit. Which it's just this like kind of complicated arrhythmic math rock that like kind of veers into like metal stuff every now and then. And I'd say this game definitely skews more towards the kind of like chiptune genre of music, but you can feel the influence there of like you can definitely hear double bass going on in the background, and the way that like Pliny or Polyphia or even like Protest the Hero or something like that, and the way that they just have these like very weird time signatures, guitars, leads going on in the background. It makes it really interesting to play, and I think aids the sense of this kind of like chaotic, fast battle that's going on in the background.
Yeah, but you also have to use a lot of thought and intelligence to get there, right? You're playing the angles always. You're thinking about physics.
Yes, there's a level of precision there that's not, say, in something like Doom, you know, where like Doom leaves a lot of space for you to kind of like improv, you know, like
there's a little jazz in there.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas this one is asking you, like, you really do kind of have to nail it sometimes. It's not going to be like this isn't a game that the level plays out exactly the same, but you do kind of have to learn the lessons of like, okay, those ships explode in a certain way that I need to make sure I know before I go into the next fight. Or if I'm going head on with somebody, I need to be able or need to make sure to dodge at the last second so I don't just collide with them. Yeah, I think it's a very fun game. It's the curse of talking about something simple like a Mario or something where it's like, fun. Yeah, dude, just fun. Press A, feel good. It's a similar sort of vibe. But I would recommend checking this out if you're just like, I need some fun, fast game right now.
It sounds like they nailed the physics engine for the game.
Yes, absolutely.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, none of it feels like unfair or too punitive. And the more complicated dogfights that you get into, I think the enemies also do the good kind of like 3D action game thing where they show that what they're going to do. And so you have like fair notice, like, oh, there's another like complicated ship like mine that's attacking me that I know like whenever it blinks red, he is about to like warp in front of me and shoot me. So I need to be able to remember like what that does rather than just like, there are some times where it's just kind of a bullet hell and you do have to like dodge a lot. But I think that the difficulty curve, while it is challenging, it rewards you for like remembering what the fight, what happened in the fight last time it happened. Gotcha. Which is good. Jet Lancer. It's good. It's also a good Steam Deck game. Very fun to play on Steam Deck.
Steam Deck.
Not a lot of like complicated controls. And I will say that I think that the left analog stick is kind of necessary for me because that's what controls your orientation as your like jet. Yeah. And I feel like just having that on WASD might not be very good because it's like you only have like kind of 8 directions you can point in. You need that omnidirectional. I do, yeah. I feel like there is a level of precision that you miss with a keyboard.
You're gonna get that OLED?
I don't think I'm gonna get the OLED. I think I'm gonna wait for whatever next generation they have.
Steam Deck 2.
Yeah, probably. Because like the OLED looks cool, and I like that they made the fan a little bit quieter, and like there are some internal upgrades outside of just the OLED screen, which is like compelling on its own. But I feel like it's it's kind of an expensive piece of hardware.
Sure is.
And I don't want to just like drop it on something that feels kind of luxurious right now.
How long has the Steam Deck been out? 2 years?
I think it was last year. The second game that I want to talk about, David, it's called Cobalt Core.
Oh, okay.
This is
the deck building. I'm about to say, this sounds like a deck building roguelike.
This is the deck building roguelike. It is. For anybody who's maybe newer to this show, this was kind of like a joke early on, was just that I would play any deck building game.
Especially if it had roguelike tendencies.
Yes.
Mechanics.
Yeah. And even if it didn't, sometimes I would still fuck with that. But I wouldn't say that my appetite for that has kind of slowed, but I think that the like wave of those kind of games has slowed down a little bit. Like there isn't quite as many dropping all the time. There's still a lot, but I feel like there was like a barrage for a little while there of all the games who were like immediately hyper influenced by Slay the Spire were like, we got to put out our own game pretty quick. And like, definitely some of those had like standouts, and other ones felt a little bit more derivative of Slay the Spire originally. But I still liked a lot of those games.
Yeah.
But I will say that something that I was hoping for that somebody would take the ball and run with is that, like, I think in the same way that Hades said, we're going to make looping part of the narrative in that game. I was waiting for a deck building roguelike to do that too, because like Slay the Spire for all intents and purposes is like almost closer to like an Enter the Gungeon or Binding of Isaac, in that it is a largely mechanical experience. Like Slay the Spire has a story, but it is like kind of gestured at rather than like specific things happening and like specific characters having like story or plot or anything like that. There's like, yeah, like this guy might be a dude and he might be trying to escape a spire, whatever that means. And like,
is this guy a dude?
This guy's a dude. But it's largely in the background. I was a little bit hopeful with the game Grifflands, which came out, which did have a story to it. And I think that in that one, you were choosing a lot of the beats that would happen to a person in any single run. And that was cool. And there were moments where there seemed to be characters that recognized that there was a loop going on. But by and large, the way that story played out, which is still interesting to be clear, but the way that story played out is that it turned more into a choose your own adventure thing where you were just kind of exploring all the different possible options.
Sure.
Or something like Way the Samurai, where the same thing happened, where you can play through it and get a bunch of different stories and just sort of choose like, oh, I want to check out what happens if I go this route this time. And I liked that, but it didn't. I kept hoping for like, come on, like somebody's got to see Hades and Slay the Spire and be like, I bet I could do one of those. Anyway, enter Cobalt Core, a game made by Rocket Rat Games, another good
Rocket
Rat Games, another good name for a studio. This is a deck building game, and it is also a space combat game. The way that this one works out is that you have a ship that you start with, kind of like FTL almost. You have a ship that you're starting out with that has like, it's built in a certain way. So there's like, 5 tiles of a ship. It's the left one is either nothing or like a missile launcher. The next one is like a rocket. The next little tile is like your control center or something like that. Largely, you'll be not worried about that for the first like good handful of runs. You just get one ship and that's your deal. But you have that ship, and whenever you get into combat, you are facing another ship directly. It's just like you on the bottom, this other guy on the top, and you draw cards whenever you like start your turn that are determined by the makeup of your team, which I'll explain in a second. But essentially you have a bunch of different cards in your card pool. Those things will allow you to do stuff like shoot at the other guy, or move left or right a little bit, or make your shots a little stronger, or draw a card, or anything like that, right? Like kind of, I wouldn't say standard deck building stuff, but stuff that is familiar to people who have played a lot of these games. The complicated parts of this game come into the fact that like where you are positionally, where you are relative to the other combatant is really important, right? So initially your ship takes up these like 5 squares, and you can move horizontally, right? So left or right, and you see before their turn what they're going to do. So they're like, okay, on their ship, they have like 8 tiles of ship or whatever. They're going to shoot from the leftmost one, and that's going to do 2 damage. And they're going to do a missile out of this part of the ship, and it sort of like just goes down the way. And so you have to figure out like, all right, where do I want to be whenever they do that? And then like, can I even move? Like, do I have enough resources to move where I want to be? Or do I have enough to just like take the hit and not move? Do I just want to stay here and shoot and use my resources on that? And that sort of stuff. So like just on that layer, it's incredibly fun. Like a very fun game. I think it is doing a lot of novel things. Kind of reminds me of Into the Breach in the way that like positioning is a really important part of the game. And you can see what your opponents are going to do. And so the challenge is not like reacting hard enough. It's just like, I hope I have set myself up well enough from the previous turn. And also I hope that like my deck is structured in a way where I have enough balance of like attacks and movements to be able to like respond to whatever they have. Right. So all that's really, really great. Like just if the game was, if it looked bad, if it sounded bad, and there was nothing else on top, just that deck building part would be really good. Like just the core of the game is very fun. But there's a lot more to it. I think like on first blush, the visual style is really fun. It is like kind of chipper in the way that it like displays the stuff that's going on. The characters are all very like kind of happy-go-lucky looking little like animals that they're like recurring characters over each run, right? So you have initially 3 characters that you can bring with you. And what they do is just determine what kind of cards you can pull and what kind of like Enslave the Spire you would call artifacts, like stuff that is a permanent buff or hindrance that you kind of carry with you of like, okay, so you get 1 more energy, but you can't move as much or anything like that. Those kind of trade-offs. And you can think about it almost like clans in Monster Train, where it determines a lot of the stuff that you'll be doing in there. But instead of having 2 clans, you have 3 people. So anyway, I'm getting too in the weeds. So all of their like characterizations are very funny. There's like dialogue between a lot of these like moments, these like fights and stuff. And it's all very funny. Like, again, I think it's a hard thing to do, but it's pretty clever in ways that I find pretty endearing.
Sure.
The characters are all very fun and like friendly with each other. They kind of like rib each other every now and then, which is very cool. And the game essentially progresses by very, very similar to any other deck building roguelike, where you start on one tile on the left part of the screen after you finish like a battle or whatever. And you have a couple of different branching paths, eventually culminating in like a fight with a boss. If you've played a deck building roguelike, that part will feel very familiar to anybody who's like seen that before. But I think that the kind of like sweet and salty part of this game that I think is really working for me is that there's this like bubbling sense of melancholy that the game communicates a couple of different ways. But the first few that I noticed was that there's like an AI cat that is telling you what to do initially in the beginning of the game. And it like sort of suggests that there have already been quite a few loops that you've gone through.
Oh.
And you don't exactly know what that means, right? You're unclear. Like if you've played a deck building roguelike, you sort of might know, like, I bet when I die that constitutes a loop, but you don't know initially. But yes, as it turns out, like if you lose, you just start over, and like that is what this like character is talking about when they're talking about like you've already been through a couple of loops. I think they say like 400 or something like that. So it's been a lot of them. And especially when you start beating bosses, I think a couple of the characters have been like, hey, how many times have we been here? And a couple times they'll say like, you've never. This is the first time you've gotten this far.
That's cool.
And so there's this like, in the same way that in the Outer Wilds, there's this kind of sweet melancholy that game has, where like there's this feeling of like everything's cool right now, but I'm living the same day over and over again. And there's like a sadness to that. This game has that too, where there's just this feeling of like, listen, we're all being very chipper and funny and things are kind of clever between us, but like, how long have we been doing this? You know, and like nobody seems to remember like who they were before. There's like this kind of, they essentially got pulled out of cryosleep to finish some mission that they don't know what it actually entails. And so everybody's just kind of like, you know, running on vibes essentially. But where I think the game really starts to succeed is that the moment you beat a run, right, which is just like you essentially do 3 of these levels and you beat a boss, the game is like, okay, great, you got to this like core. The AI cat sort of like escapes the ship and inserts himself into this core, and it seems like there's maybe some kind of explosion or something like that. But after that, you get a list of the characters that you're playing as, and it just lines up and says, whose memory would you like to unlock? And then if you click on one of them, memory 1 pops up and shows you just like a little bit of a backstory of like this character showing up at the space station that these characters were working at before they started going on this loop, right? So in the same way that Outer Wilds is kind of like showing you the history of what has happened here, that's kind of it's a similar arc with this game where the looping is kind of this act of like discovery rather than just like a mechanical dominance that you would see in like Monster Trainer Slay the Spire or like most other deck building roguelikes. And so it again, I think the similar feeling is there of like, I want to find out what's happening and like what has taken place here, which I think is really neat. And like, again, you get a little bit of this with like Inscription, the game that came out last year. And like, I think Inscription is wonderful and really incredible, but I think I don't know why, but this just, the way that this game is playing out really means a lot to me. I think Inscription was like cool for the amount of like swerves that game had. But I'm like very invested in these characters and what happened to them and why they're here, you know? And so I think it is adding narrative in a way that I was hoping for in a lot of these games. I don't think I was bashing Inscription. Inscription is a wonderful game, and I don't think either of their successes
hates Inscription.
I know. I don't know why that sounded bad. Both of these games are wonderful. But I'm really enjoying it. I'm really compelled to continue playing. And like in the same way that Hades is fun, I like playing this game. Just the bottom part of the game, the core of it is extremely fun to play through.
Awesome.
So it's very easy to continue just chugging along and trying different stuff and building new decks, and you eventually start unlocking new characters that offer different ways to play the game too. So you can choose like, all right, of my three characters that I take in any given run, who am I going to bring this time that will maybe change how this run works or anything like that.
Yeah.
The recurring theme, the soundtrack absolutely fucking slaps. It is so good. There's the dude who worked on it is named Aaron Cheroff, I think is how you say it. God, it just communicates that like kind of sweet melancholy so well. Did you ever listen to Tycho? Was that the band that you listened to at all?
Tycho? I don't think so.
Tycho. It's this kind of like
is
electronic.
Is it Tycho? Is that it? Is that
yes,
them?
yeah.
I know of them, but I don't think I can name you a song.
Yeah, it's like instrumental music and like kind of ethereal. And this soundtrack reminds me a lot of that, and also Disaster Piece, who did like the Fez soundtrack and stuff like that. There's just it's so nice to listen to, but also like I found myself at like 10:30 a couple nights ago playing this, and I was like, I rolled over to my wife. I'm like, why am I sad right now? What has made me sad? And then like the next day was playing this game and turned the volume off. And I was like, oh my God, it's the music. It's like just that effective.
It's sad music.
Yeah. I am that guy that like, if I hear enough sad music, I will feel sad for like an extended amount of time. Not just like, oh, I feel sad listening to it. Like my vibe is harshed by too much sad music.
Oh no.
Not in a bad way. Like I think I am incredibly affected by music.
You're susceptible.
Yes, yeah. And so like I think it is the sign of a good soundtrack that like this one kind of kicks my ass if I listen to it too much. It's like beautiful though. It's like a really, really good soundtrack. And so like, I would recommend checking it out because it is like very nice to listen to. But I think it matches the vibe of the game so well. I think that is a hard thing to communicate. The like emotions and state that this game is offering. And they managed to do it both with the story and the art and the mechanics, but also the music, which is like, it seems challenging to line those two things up. And so it's really impressive to play through a game that does both of them that well. Yeah, that's Cobalt Core, a very good game.
Sounds fun.
It is, yeah. Again, another very good Steam Deck game.
These creatures are cute.
They are cute, right?
Nice. Hell yeah.
It's good. Anyway, David, the final game that I've been playing is this recent release called Knuckle Sandwich.
Knuckle Sandwich?
Knuckle Sandwich.
Are you just punching people the whole time?
No. It has kind of a sinister meaning that I don't want to ruin, but if you play it, you'll find out.
Oh. Uh-oh.
Yeah. I was not expecting there to be any sort of meaning behind it. I was just like, that's kind of a fun name. But like there is kind of a meaning behind it. I was like, oh, geez, okay. This is a game that the developer has just listed as Andy Brophy, which I presume just means he made it. Just like this guy, but I didn't see anything else other than that. So this is a really bizarre game. I think the closest description I can do as far as like comparisons to other games is that it is a little bit Undertale, a little bit Earthbound, and a lot of bit WarioWare as well.
Sure.
Like at a mechanical level, you are like you're controlling this dude who has just moved to town from like a top-down perspective. Again, it looks very kind of like high fidelity Earthbound visual style. And whenever you get into combat, parts of it are traditional, like kind of just turn-based RPG stuff. But every now and then, if you use a special move or if you are being attacked by a certain enemy, it will just turn into a WarioWare game all of a sudden.
That's cool.
It's very cool. And like one of the cooler applications of that like idea that WarioWare poses, you know, where like I think the fun parts of a WarioWare game are the chaos that it presents you.
Oh yeah.
The requirement of needing to adapt to whatever they're throwing at you. And so, you know, for some of the like kind of micro games that you'll run into, sometimes it is like catch the egg and you have control of a hand that's moving back and forth, and eventually there will be an egg that you need to press A on to crush it. And if you do, then not only do you not take damage, but you also damage the enemy who is trying to attack you. But if you fail, then that's the state where you start taking damage. Your standard attack plays out kind of like golf, like the way that games play golf, where there's a meter that's kind of going back and forth, and when you hit A, it starts, and then you have to line it up with the meter that's already kind of running around there, which is very fun. I love that. But I think the draw of those mechanics is definitely the integration of these like micro games that WarioWare has posed. So like just again on a mechanical layer, I think that's all like very cool and very novel, something that I like truly haven't seen before outside of like WarioWare and also Spookware. The game came out a couple of years ago. But I think it's like it's rare for me to see it leveraged in such a grounded way where like the point of WarioWare is the micro games, whereas the point of Knuckle Sandwich is to like, you know, progress and fight, but like it has that part of WarioWare, which I find like really endearing and really cool. But outside of that, it is this like very surreal game where, like I said, you play as this dude who moved to a new town, and the first thing that you have to do is like get a job, right? That's your first mission. And it's this kind of like magical realism stuff going on where you get dropped off at the town center. The way that you are like placed into a job is you go to the job center, and there's like a game show that's being hosted where you're the contestant to figure out like what kind of job do you want. And the person is like, you have to like spin the wheel kind of games. And it lands on like, you know, you are a space cleanup guy, and that doesn't really make any sense. And they're like, all right, go to the other room to see if you're any good at it. And like, it makes you play a micro game as a result. Or are you an exterminator or any of that stuff? Anyway, point being, you fail all of those. Even if you win the micro games, you like do something bad and fail them all. And the guy's like, oh, I guess you're not meant for labor or whatever. And then they like kick you out essentially, like you can't come here.
Dang.
Yes. So you go home, and on the way there, you find a ad for like a burger place that's like, hey, we'll hire anybody. Just come through if you want a job. And you proceed to get like the worst job of your life for a guy who's like, I'm not going to pay you. It's all like very kind of like presented funny. It's very surreal in the way that these characters like talk to each other and shit. And the game just kind of plays out from there. But the like grasp on reality does kind of eventually come unhinged, and like some wild shit starts happening.
Okay.
But before that, here's the one thing that I'm not sure is working or not for me. There's a moment in the game, I don't want to spoil it, but it like calls into question whether or not we're supposed to be interpreting these events literally or not. Like a lot of games, you know, they engage in some kind of metaphor, right? Where like turn-based fighting doesn't equate to exactly what's happening on the screen, you know? And so the game eventually like has you reckon with like, what did you just do in that fight? And I think it may end up meaning something. But right now it was like very jarring and like kind of a shock. And like, I think that's what the game is intending to do. It's not like that was an unintended consequence of like having this thing happen, but it was like very rattling as I was playing it, of like, whoa, okay, this is a different game than I thought it was. Because Earthbound is also like very surrealist and weird shit is happening, and you're like fighting adults who have gone crazy and stuff like that. But at no point is that questioned. It's just sort of like, yeah, you beat them up and then they turn normal again. You know, or like any of the events that are taking place, the in-game logic is such that it is saying to you, like, you don't need to question this. This is normal. These are normal things that are happening. And maybe no real like consequences are really, there are no dire consequences to the things that you're doing other than the upsides, other than the good things you're doing. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I think the game is asking you to maybe like question that, which is like good, to be fair. I like that what that is doing, because that reminds me of the stuff that I really like about video games, like in Nier Automata or Metal Gear Solid 2 or anything like that, where player agency is like, you know, a big part of it. But I'm still kind of lingering on this moment. It's like, it's pretty wild. So I think whether or not you like really jive with that or not will probably help shape what you think about this game. Mm-hmm. I will say that the game goes to great lengths after that to kind of lighten the mood. I don't think it is as heavy as something like Amori, where a lot of that game seems to be orbiting around like self-harm and kind of like suicidal ideation, stuff like that, which is like intense and also draws a lot from the same stuff, right? Like Undertale and Earthbound and shit like that. Mm-hmm. And so it's not quite as heavy as that, but it is heavy. It does like the game does give you a like trigger warning at the beginning of the game for this thing.
Oh, geez.
I think like it's smart to do that because it would really come out of nowhere if they didn't do that. Because like up to that point, it has still just been like, isn't this place weird? And you go on a game show and get a job and you didn't get the job. Now you're working at the burger place, you know, like all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I think it would have taken a lot of people by surprise, where I think it like mentioning up front, like, hey, this is not a kid's game is like important. All that said, I am still really enjoying this game. It is so bananas and so wild. It so regularly changes graphical style. Like when you're dreaming, especially, it is like, normally the game is in like this top-down 2D perspective, but when you're dreaming, it's in this like kind of like lo-fi 3D world. Which is so fascinating and so interesting as a way to like play with, like graphical style. Like I think that is just something that is not toyed with enough. I think it's done usually for comedy, right? Like in Super Mario Odyssey or something, when you go down a pipe and suddenly you're like the 2-bit version of Mario. But I think you see this in Anodyne 2. That game also toys a lot with perspective and graphical fidelity. I think that can be so interesting as a way to like kind of frame what's happening and comment on like what the player is doing and what their mental state is, because you don't see that very often, especially in games. It's usually just like, this is how the game looks the whole game, you know. Even in games that look beautiful, it's like, it's still the same stuff. And so I think to in the same game change how you are perceiving these characters just visually is fascinating and really cool and really interesting. I'm really curious to see what the narrative culminates in. Because like I said, it's engaging with stuff that is actually pretty heavy, or at least it's sort of gesturing at like there is a darkness to this game. And I kind of hope that it doesn't go in the way of Amori, where it's just like so overwhelmingly heavy, and more so, you know, it has heavy parts. Like I think Undertale does a good job of this, but I also think that Undertale doesn't show its hand super early with what it's doing. I think it lets you kind of like steep in the game for a while before you're like, I either regret the thing that I have done, or I now know what I have to do, or anything like that. It takes a while to get there. Whereas this one, within the first like half an hour, kind of starts punching you. Sure. I think that this game is working, and it is at the very least incredibly inventive. So I think it's worth a play. I will again hammer on this point. Absolute banger of a soundtrack. Absolute banger of a soundtrack. In fact, I would like to play you just a little bit. This is the like battle theme song that they play. It's called Handsome Humanoids.
Oh, cool. Good name.
Let's give this a listen.
Damn.
It's so good.
It's a booty shaker. It's a toe tapper. Oh man. There's this TikTok account by this dude who's playing an instrument that I truly do not know what it is.
And it sounds just like people on that TikTok usually comment along the lines of like, man, this song sounds so gloopy. Gloopy. And this song to me sounds very gloopy.
I see that.
It sounds like a Toe Jam and Earl kind of soundtrack, or just like the soundtrack for frogs to hang out in or something like that. Real gloopy music.
Swamp vibes, you're saying?
Swamp vibes, yes. Absolutely.
I do love myself a swamp.
But it's really, really good music. And I think that it nods a lot to WarioWare soundtracks where like weird vocalizations are a part of the music.
Yeah.
Like in there was like that clip of the guy going, yeah, like just kind of being pitched down. That kind of stuff so pops up a lot, which is just like, it's so cool. And again, definitely indicates to me that this game is very aware of like where it's drawing its influence from, but it is still creating something that feels incredibly original rather than just like, hey, we're making another WarioWare game, you know? I think that they do innovate it and take it to another level, it's very cool. But yeah, read the trigger warning before you play it. It's kind of intense. And like, it is a lot less intense if you're like just looking at it kind of objectively than like any other Call of Duty game or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Not that there's like shooting involved, but I think it just like, it builds to the moment that it is doing pretty well and lands, which is effective, right? Like that's cool that it is doing what it sets out to do, but it's just intense. It's played seriously for a moment. And so I think it's worth going into that with a level head, you know?
Gotcha. Good warning.
Good warning. Anyway, those are my games, David. What have you been playing?
Damn, there's some games, dog.
Real indie titles, man.
Real indie titles, deep cut. They all sound pretty fun.
Sorry, no Dave the Divers allowed here.
Did you hear all that? Backer.
So weird. I was thinking about this because I definitely mentioned that was an indie game when we talked about it earlier in the year. Mm-hmm. And all that information's come out about it's like a huge company made it. So strange.
It's a big controversy right now.
Yeah, very bizarre.
AAA indie games, baby, here we come.
Like, I'm not opposed to like that kind of game being made, but definitely don't make yourself look like we're a tiny little indie studio, but also like we have billions of dollars backing us or whatever. What games you playing, dude?
Yeah, so I've still been playing Octopath Traveler 2. Still a man of culture.
Me too. Yes.
Not much else to say about this game except it's still very fun.
Yeah.
And that whenever I play an Agni section, Journey's Don't Stop Believin' is continually playing in the back of my head. Just like, this is the vibe for this girl, this young woman.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It does feel, she does have kind of an 80s opera rock vibe to her, you know?
I'm just here to dance in this world. That's all.
But I agree.
Still, great game.
Yes.
I'm back into Nier Replicant. I'm in the desert. I went to the desert city.
Yeah.
It's out there with the people with the masks on their faces. And it's becoming more and more Nier as I go and progress through this game. It's really good.
That's good. I like this.
It's very much, if you like Nier Automata, you're going to enjoy this game. It has the same feel to the combat. It has the same sort of grandiosity to the environments that you're in, the same great soundtrack, just great combat in general too. It's really, I'm really enjoying this one. The only thing that kind of holds it back for me is it still does feel a little dated in some points with just the structure of save points. So you can kind of get messed up sometimes if you're not careful enough, but just be careful and you'll be good.
Yeah.
But a lot of fun. Great game. Highly recommend it. Bundles of fun. And definitely playing a lot of Baldur's Gate 3 right now.
Yeah.
Mallory will be leaving on Saturday and she won't be coming back until the nigh on January.
Oh my God. That's so long.
We really got to pack in a lot of gating in the next like week or so because she's scooting on out of here for quite some time. So we got to pack in a lot of gating this week. A lot of gating.
Open the gates, man.
Open the gates. I really am enjoying the area of Baldur's Gate now. Mm-hmm. At first, when you get there, it is just so overwhelming. There's
a lot. Yeah.
So it's so much more dense than anywhere else you'd been so far. Like everywhere else had been like a very open, rural area, a lot of like woods to explore, whereas Baldur's Gate is like so packed full of people and shops and layers and levels and side quests and everything to go and see. It really does give you a great sense of being in a big city, but then I feel like that young kid from the Midwest who moves to New York City to make it, I'm just overwhelmed completely and totally. Like, I don't know what I'm doing here.
I've never seen an Olive Garden in a city. What's going on, dude?
There's an Olive Garden right next to a Buca di Beppo. How many chain Italian restaurants can this city support?
I think I can feel a macaroni grill.
And then you round the corner, Macaroni Grill right there. They got their crayons in their hands ready for you to come on in and start drawing on their tables.
Come on, it's gimmicky. Come right on the tables.
I'm the server. I'm going to come to your table. I'm going to use maybe 3 or 4 crayons in my hand to write my name on your table with a flourish.
Oh, they do write their name on the table, huh?
Yeah, in the crayon with like a couple different ones to like be like,
yes.
Hey, I'm Mark. Just in case you don't remember me.
I've only been to Macaroni Grill like once or twice. And I thought that was maybe just a flex that our server specifically was doing. No. But that makes a lot more sense that that's like the restaurant's thing.
When they're in Macaroni Boot Camp, that's a full week. It's just learning how to do that without breaking eye contact with the customers.
You have to get the flourish down. You must do it. Uh-huh. Just sitting under a waterfall trying to find which flourish suits your character.
They're trying to do the flourish in the waterfall as it falls. Only when you can part the waters with your name will you be ready to be a server at Macaroni Grill.
This would make a great Wii game because you could like draw the flourish in the water. I bet that would come out pretty good.
And did we just make a WarioWare Smooth Moves minigame?
Yeah, you could just do that. It's probably cheaper than making a full-blown Wii game, huh?
I mean, you could do the Wii game too. It'd be like Okami.
Yeah.
But macaroni.
Or Red Steel.
Red Steel. That's good too. Love it. Oh, Red Steel. What could have been? Anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah, Baldur's Gate, I feel like I finally have my compass of the city. I finally have grokked it. I've explored enough of the area to understand what's going on. But just really enjoying all of the side quests in this city, all of like how intricate things are connected to characters you met in the beginning of the game, things that you saw in the beginning of the game that are now coming to fruition here, rumors that you heard that are now coming to fruition in Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
So it's just a very fun culmination to all of this information that you have been gathering and all of these experiences that you have been experiencing through the game so far. So yeah, really, really great. And it's that with the new patches they've been putting out, it seems to be running a bit smoother now for us, which is always a joy.
Yeah, totally. Mm-hmm. It's good. I also can empathize with this experience. I feel like I also got a little overwhelmed when I first hit the actual city. But I feel like going to like the edges of the city and being like, okay, I see like where I am and the places where I haven't been yet. Mm-hmm. And like just choosing maybe like one big thing to make your priority. Yeah. Really helped me. Of like, all right, I may do some side quests along the way, but like, here's the thing I'm going to focus on for a little while. Absolutely. Because like, there's so many big, meaty quests in there that I like at first I was just like, what do I even do right now? Yeah. It's like, does the order matter? I think it also helps that when you were there, it's just you, whereas it's me and Mallory in this city. And I'll be like talking to somebody and then she'll just go off on her own. And I'm like, where are you? She's like on the other side of the damn city. I'm like, there is so much. She's like trying to talk to Cazador. I'm like, no, not yet. Not Cazador. Yes. So many properly named noun characters. It's surprising that they are able to make them all memorable enough that like, I know all these people. I know who they're talking about. That is typically not my strong suit in a video game, is like memorizing first and last names. This is like Game of Thrones level of characters in this right now. But I love that. I love having like a little encyclopedia in my head of all these characters and their connections and everything. It's a fun time for me. Yeah, absolutely. Anyways, Chase, do you have something fueling your sense of Podtimism for the week? Yeah, I think I do. What is it? In the Discord, it was pointed out to me by fellow podcaster Matt of Can't Let It Go that the Particio theme also sounds a lot like Kelly Clarkson's Behind These Hazel Eyes. Did you see this video that got posted in there? I did see that. That was amazing. Which forced my hand into making that become a thing. And it's just really been on my mind. Really been thinking about it a lot. You know, part of me is like, when is the next talent show coming up and who can I find to sing Kelly Clarkson's Behind These Hazel Eyes while I play Particio's saxophone in the background? We could make this happen. I mean, see what Kelly's doing. She might like Octopath Traveler too. You never know. She's probably around here somewhere. In the Discord? Yeah, I presume so. Kelly's always present. The Discord. I was thinking Montecito, but yeah. No, yeah. Everybody knows Kelly Clarkson's got a couple of burner Discord accounts that she's just lurking everywhere. Keeping up to
known
up to date.
Podhead Kelly Clarks.
She's got plenty of free time. It's all used on podcasting and Discord shit posting.
What is she even doing nowadays? Is she on The Voice? Is that what she does?
Maybe. I see her a lot. She's on TV quite a bit, so like she's doing stuff.
America's sweetheart.
Yeah. I mean, good for Kelly, man. She's earned it.
Kels, live it up.
There's this like trend I keep seeing on TikTok of like people pretending to be someone who their song got covered by Kelly Clarkson, because she oftentimes will just like absolutely crush the original performance and just like knock it out of the park with her own version.
Oh no.
And so they're like, please don't cover my song, Kelly. Like you're going to be too good.
What else has she covered?
I don't know offhand, but I feel like I've seen this recently of her doing a couple different versions of songs that are also famous right now. I think she did an Olivia Rodrigo song, which like, again,
sure,
it was good. It was good. Anyway, that's what's been fueling my podtimism. It's just, I've been thinking about it.
Kelly Clarkson.
Just Kelly and that mashup. Just trying to figure out where she is on Discord. I know she's in there.
I voted for her like I think 10 times.
Damn, dude. Big Kelly head. I don't know if I voted or not. I think I didn't think it worked.
Disenfranchised Albie over here.
Yeah. American Idol voter suppression, all heart. That's me.
By choice, too.
Yeah, no, I'm like a anar-capitalist or something. Like I'm trying to burn the American Idol system down. It's not a meritocracy. We have to opt out, everybody.
It's a Kellytocracy.
It is a Kellytocracy. I can sense when a good episode title pops up.
Chase, the hairs on Chase's neck started to stand up.
Yeah,
his mustache whiskers started to stand on edge.
Vibrating.
It's like a dowsing rod.
Yeah. Do you have anything fueling your sense of optimism, David?
Yeah, I do.
What is it?
It is a good, in-depth, meaty side quest for a specific side character.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love it when a side character gets like a nice long quest line that you can just follow through with them. Definitely Baldur's Gate is the one that made me think of it right now. Definitely all of your companions are getting such an in-depth story in Baldur's Gate. It's pretting great.
Yeah.
But then also thinking back on it, of course, Mass Effect 3 was the original king of this.
Yeah.
Man, so many of those side quests were so good. So good.
It's such a rarity at the time too. I feel like games were so focused on like the main quest for most games that like at the time that was fairly novel to be like, whoa, there's a lot of extra game in here for somebody who's not the main character. You know, that it was really cool to be able to be like, there's all this other shit in here. I can't believe this.
I think that's kind of what part of also, you know, not to beat a dead horse right now, but kind of what Octopath Traveler 2 is tapping into. Just a lot of like 8 very well crafted, kind of meaty, like essentially not like a little bit more than like what a side quest would be in a game, just like a skosh more, right?
Yeah.
And it makes it short and sweet and just kind of contains everything in one little bit. Really great.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
It is weird that it almost feels like there's a missing main character in Octopath, which like isn't a bad thing, but like they could have easily slapped Shepard, the commander of the Normandy, around Octopath 8 and had them all be side quests. But I do think it is nice that they just allow you to control any of them.
My name is Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite RPG on the Switch.
My name is Commander Shepard, and we're going to take back Ku from your brother, Hikari.
I'm glad they didn't have like one overarching main character.
Me too. No, I think it's like a really cool move.
It's a good call. The main character is friendship, really.
Yes, yeah, of course. The real main character was the Octopaths we made along the way.
It's the real main character is those weird little Octopath travelers that you find every now and then that give you a bunch of experience.
God, dude, those things break my heart sometimes because like I will be out there grinding for those guys because like I'll have one character that's just like super low level compared to the rest of my characters, and I'm just like, if I could just get one of those guys, it would bring them up to like a pretty usable level. But like
they're just on life support over there most of the time.
Pretty much, yeah. Temenos for a while was just like easily 20 to 30 levels lower than the rest of the party. And so I just had to keep bringing him out there and like prop him up with my other characters. But multiple times I ran into the like little Octopath octopuses or whatever, the Kates too. Mm-hmm. And they would like, I tried like, oh my God, I have to hit them quickly because they're going to flee. And then of course they do flee. I'm not fast enough. I can't do it.
Yep.
It works every now and then, but like I'd say the majority of the time they run away before I can hit them with like anything substantial.
And they always dodge. They're good little dodgers.
The move is to just hit them with magic because magic typically doesn't miss.
Magic stays hit.
It stays hidden. There's also those items that you can use that like do magic damage, the like soul stones or whatever. So if you've got somebody up first who doesn't have magic, use one of those. Good but tip. Even still, then things are running away from me anyway. So who knows?
It's true.
Well, cool. Do you want to move on to our main thing too?
Yeah, let's do it.
Fucking sick.
I don't need a break. I don't need nothing except pod.
Except gaming.
Gaming.
Just put a controller in my hands, Dad. I'm here to pod. Do you think it would make the podcast worse or better if I played with like a controller in my hand, or if I podcasted with a controller in my hand?
Ooh, I have one right here. Let's see.
You're suddenly like 10 times funnier. Just like absolutely crushing the podcast game. Dude, I just 360 no-scoped you.
Dude, I 360 no-scoped this pod.
What would that even mean? What does that metaphor mean in podcasting?
It means...
I'm fucking sick.
It's nothing. I can't... what am I supposed to do with that?
It means I'm really cool.
Welcome to Good Games. It's the segment where we talk about the okayest games of yesteryear and gush all the things that we love about them. Got another listener suggestion from listener Joe P, who has suggested that we play Summon Night. He said, Summon Night, Swordcraft Story. 1 or 2, no preference. So we chose 1 just to start at the beginning, you know? Mm-hmm. Joe had mentioned these are 2 excellent action RPGs from the GBA era that I think generally tend to fly under the radar. I'm not sure if they were even discussed on the Into the Aether GBA season premiere. He said he didn't find them until a few years after, when he was definitely legally emulating a lot of Game Boy Advance games.
Nice.
Had you heard of this game before?
I had never heard of this game.
Me neither. Absolutely not. Did not know about this game. And I think there's actually a pretty like tangible reason for that. Because like I feel like most of the time when I say like, ooh, I didn't hear about this game, sometimes it's like, okay, well, this one, wasn't very widely distributed, or there wasn't a lot of press about it. But this game, and I'll explain a little bit more in a second, but it didn't come to North America until 2006.
Oh, wow.
Which like...
kind of out the door by then.
Yeah, that was like the last little like time that it was even available. Yeah, the DS came out in 2004. So this was like 2 years after the DS was already kind of like humming along. And so I think it kind of makes sense that this may have been something that a lot of people missed, ourselves included, apparently.
Yeah.
But why don't we just get to the hot stats, huh?
Hit me with the hot stats, baby.
Let's do it.
Hot stats.
So, Summon Night, Swordcraft Story, as suggested, came out on the Game Boy Advance. So, in North America, it came out July 26th of 2006, but in Japan, it came out April 25th of 2003. So, like a full 3 years earlier is when this game launched in Japan. It was made by this company called Flight Plan, and they're honestly mostly known for this story or this game, and there was one other one, Black/Matrix. I don't know what that game is, but apparently it's like a tactics thing. Largely Japan only releases, I will say. Like that's most of their games have really only come out there. And so I think that's probably why it took so long for it to get over here, was that like either it wasn't planned to be here originally and they maybe said like, hey, let's port it because it's doing well or whatever. But it doesn't seem like that was part of the plan originally, at least based on when it came out. I have no other information about like what the comings and goings internally were.
Sure.
But from the outside looking in, that's just kind of like my guess. But who knows? So they made those, and they also made the Dragon Ball Z Legendary Super Warriors for the Game Boy Color.
Whoa.
I don't know if I played that one or not. Chances are I did, but just had to shout out the GBZ.
The Game Boy Color.
Yeah, an older one. I do have a review of this game from the outlet Deco. I don't know.
Excuse me?
Yeah, I don't know if that's a guy or if that is an outlet or whatever. It's the first time I've seen Deco's work. But
Mr. Deco.
They reviewed Summon Night, and I took their review, ran it through Google Translate a number of times, one language into the other, to get an artist's interpretation of the review, which I'll read for you now, David.
Let's hear it.
Overall, Call of Duty RPGs aren't always the best, but they're still a good time and fun to play because there are literally 2 main characters, 1 town, and 8 different ways to play. The main battle between God and Harold isn't as clear-cut as it is in other games.
Harold!
But it is likely to change the course of the game, hopefully in Season 2, October. And they gave that an 8 out of 10.
Oh, that was a really good one. The final battle between God and Harold.
Sorry, Heralds, for apparently being the enemy of God.
Yeah, the Antichrist Harold.
Yeah, didn't mean to put you on blast so hard there, but I guess that's what Deco has to say about it.
Just be better, Harold. Just be better.
What is this game, David? What is Summon Night?
That's an excellent question. There's a lot to unpack here.
It's a lot of video game.
There's a lot of video game in this. Summon Night is a top-down RPG on the Game Boy Advanced.
Yes.
So you walk around an overworld and if you go up, right, left, or down, it opens up to a new screen, right? But the way that there's a lot of different things you can do in this game. So you are a craft knight, which essentially is a knight and a smith rolled into one.
Yes.
So you make your weapons. So there is an element of like finding materials and finding molds to make better and stronger weapons. You can make 5 different weapons. I think you can make swords, spears, drills. You have your hammer, and there's other one. I forget. Axe.
There's big swords too. Like they have like regular little swords, and I think there's like larger ones. There's also axes. Yeah.
Big Goron sword.
Yeah, you can make the big Goron sword. Takes a while though, a couple of years.
So that's one aspect of the game. The other aspect of the game is this creature taming aspect to it, and creature friend buddy aspect to it. So the game starts off and you are wandering through an area, and then it asks you, what do you see over there? And it's like 4 different answers, like a robot, a devil girl, and like a half beast sort of thing. Whichever one you choose, you get that character as your guardian beast or summon creature for the remainder of the game. So hopefully you chose something that sounded cool to you.
Not just the dweebiest one.
Not just the dweebiest one. And so there's a whole entire story that goes on with you and this character. You become close friends, essentially. Mm-hmm. And like the game essentially starts off with a marriage, but we'll get to that later. But the summon beast or the guardian beast summon creature will help you in battle. That brings me to battles, which are these very interesting 2D side-scrolling endeavors where it's almost like it's a fighting game, except instead of having combos and grabs and throws, you have a list of different actions you can do on the bottom that you can cycle through. So you can use your sword, you can use like magic, you can use an item, or you can use your summon creature, guardian beast, to do some sort of special attack or move to help you in battle to fight these other creatures.
The fighting reminds me a little bit, it's not exactly the same thing, but it reminds me a little bit of like the Tales games, like Tales of Arise or Tales of Vesperia, where like you are in this kind of arena whenever you're fighting, but there's a little bit, it's like active, but like also kind of not. It's this kind of strange middle ground that isn't totally like an action game entirely, but it has this kind of hybrid approach of a little bit of turn-based with a little bit of like active combat. It's interesting.
It's an interesting way to do an action RPG.
Yes, yeah.
So instead of having the action being in the overworld, you go in to doing like more of like a close-up like you would in a turn-based RPG, but instead of it being turn-based, you're just going back and forth in this little 2D side-scrolling arena to fight the creature. It's pretty fun. It's fun.
Yeah. I think just like jumping into like what was interesting about this, I do think that is a pretty novel thing for the GBA.
Yeah, I was not expecting the combat to be like that at all.
No, me neither. I feel like you see stuff like this on the Game Boy Advance where like there's a pretty serious amount of innovation happening. Like there are so many games in the GBA library that I'm like, how is this on the Game Boy Advance?
They really push that little hardware to its limit, it feels like.
Yes. And this game, like it feels similar in that I'm surprised that there's this much sophisticated fighting going on in this game. Mm-hmm. It's not like God of War or something. Like you don't have to like be that intense about it, but it is novel enough, and there is enough depth there that you do have to consider how you're fighting.
Yeah, you got to try. You got to think.
I feel like it's not exactly the same speed, but there is a weight to it in the similar way that like Dark Souls is heavy You know,
Sure.
like you're not just throwing attacks out all willy nilly. You do kind of have to be like, all right, let me get my positioning right and make sure the person isn't attacking, or like
Exactly.
making sure I'm like jumping before I hit so I can get something, hit them before I hit the ground and then do another little combo, which is extremely fighting gamey to like have to consider like your approach on somebody.
Yep. The
But yeah,
neutral matters.
Yeah. It's almost Smash Brothers-y, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I found the combat actually pretty fun and pretty novel.
Yeah, no, I did enjoy it. It was interesting, and I had a strange experience playing this game. I played it on my phone.
Yes. Yeah.
Which was fascinating. And it really, like, I feel like the phone is probably about the same size as a Game Boy screen, probably bigger, actually, probably is the size of a Game Boy.
Yeah.
And the colors pop very well, and the animation looks really nice on that size of a screen. So I think that it's well crafted, I guess is what I'm trying to say as well. It looks good when you're doing the combat. It's not just fun, but it looks and feels good.
Yeah. I will certainly not be surprising anybody, but like, damn, the Game Boy Advance looks good, man. Like you can really pull a lot of performance out of this little guy with like kind of pretty optimal pixel art kind of stuff.
Yeah, it has such a unique and distinctive art style, Game Boy Advance games. Like they are very bright and stylized, but kind of simple looking characters. They're very defined.
Yeah.
Very defined.
It's like you can tell that there is a simplification going on, but it is not. It doesn't feel like there is are as many compromises made as you see like on earlier generations, like especially on like the NES and stuff like that, where like you really gotta like squint to see like what they're trying to depict.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas this is like, that's like, I can see how that's a character. I can see the moving, the combat's all very fluid and smooth. And like, it's not a question of like, am I seeing this right now or anything like that? It's like, no, it's crystal clear. So that stuff is great. And yeah, you're right. The like animation and the like color palette that they chose is like incredibly bright and cool in like the dungeon areas specifically. Weirdly enough, the overarch, like the home world or like the home areas, like very brown and kind of metallic seeming. But I think that that actually works. It's mostly just trying to, at least it felt to me like they're trying to communicate this like world that is obsessed with smithing, you know?
Sure.
And it because it is so bright and like nice to look at, it doesn't feel kind of depressing like you see in the 360 era of like the color palettes all being kind of like grays and greens and browns. I think it actually somehow manages to still be very like bright and cool. It looks great, I thought.
Yeah, no, the art style and direction of the game is top notch, I think. Looks good.
Yeah, really great. I actually do like the constraint that this game puts on itself, that like the whole game mostly takes place during this like, what is it, like a tournament essentially, to find like the next like good smith or whatever. That like there's a bunch of people like trying to do the same thing that you're doing. And I don't know, it felt like a pretty constrained, or maybe that's not the right word, but
small scope.
Yeah, it's like it is a long game. Like I was looking at playthroughs of this, and like even somebody who's like just playing straight through, it's like a 10.5 hour like playthrough, long play, which for me at least typically at least involves like 1.5 times how long that is if I myself was going to play through the whole thing, which A, is long for a Game Boy Advance game, and B, but I think to the point, like there's a lot going on without it having to be like, and then you're going to fight God. Although maybe you do fight God. I don't know. I didn't beat the game, so I don't know.
You do fight a very powerful monster in the end, I think.
Inferno Kirin? Yeah, that does look like a big dragon monster, huh? Hopefully it's not God. Hopefully it's just like a big spooky monster. But anyway, point being, it's like you're not going super far. You're not like traveling all over the world. I appreciate that it's just like, yeah, we're just doing this like tournament, and that's the story of this video game. I will say that this is like the third, I think, entry in this series, the Summon Night series. The other two were for PlayStation 2, I think. But there are a lot of games in this series.
There sure are. It was shocking. I had no idea.
And so I wouldn't be surprised if this was like kind of viewed as like a spin-off. So like, hey, we don't need to fight God in this one. I really should look up if that's the plot, because I'm going to have egg on my face if you're fighting smithing God at the end of this game.
Smithing God.
Wait, did you say smithing or sniffing?
I said smithing God, but sniffing God is very funny.
It's pretty evocative. Come all ye weary and be sniffed.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
I think I played the second one, Chase.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Just like, wait. Not that you played the second one before. You played the second one this week.
I did. I was like, hold on. The story sounds different than what I thought you were saying.
That doesn't seem correct. Yeah, because your overworld looks a lot prettier and a lot more like naturalistic than mine does.
I was like, my overworld was great. Lots of color.
Oh my God. Well, I'm now viewing some videos to see it. Honestly, it looks pretty similar, at least like combat wise.
Pretty much the similar combat wise. I think it was just you get different guardian beasts and the story's different.
Well, hey, Joe suggested that we play 1 or 2. Guess what, Joe? Unbeknownst to us, we played both.
So wait, when did mine come out then? If yours came out in 2006, mine also came out in 2006.
In North America?
In North America.
Yeah, I bet they put them out at the same time, huh?
They were like 3 or 4 months apart.
Damn, just dropping one right after the other.
2 months apart, July 26th and October 17th.
Dang. Yeah, in Japan, it was like a little bit longer. It was like a year between those launches, which makes more sense that you would develop them, but kind of aids the idea that maybe these were just like ported over to the States as a way to be like, hey, do you guys like this too? Wow. I'm surprised that this is the first time this has happened. Every now and then we will play a game and I'm like, I wonder if we're going to get the right version between the two of us.
Oh man. It finally happened.
It finally happened. But you know what? Joe wanted either of these. So we're going to deliver.
I mean, they were developed probably with the same engine and the same team within like a year of each other. So I feel like it's pretty as close as 2 games can get without being the same game.
The overworld in yours looks a lot brighter than mine. This looks pretty sick.
I really enjoyed the overworld. It was great. It had it was like a big village on top of a cliff. It was very windy up there. It felt windy.
Kind of like reminiscent of like Golden Sun or something like that in the visual style.
Exactly. And then there was a very overarching plot of I'm like part of this special family that can only seal away the big bad monster that's in the village. Yeah. But then some guy comes and forces me to open it back up because he's threatening my guardian beast, who I had just sworn to protect with my life. Did you have a marriage in yours?
Not that I'm aware of.
In number 2, it pretty much starts off, you find this guardian beast and they're like, oh, we don't allow stray summons in the village. So either you're going to become partners or we're going to have to like get rid of you. This so
you
marry
summon. Your beast?
I mean, it's not you don't actually marry them, but they like make you go up in front of everybody in town. And it's just the 2 of you up there with like the village elder. And you're like pledging yourselves to each other, to support each other and to protect each ottle and to always be there for each other. I'm just like, did I just marry this creature in front of all these people? Like,
did I just get married to Pikachu?
It's pretty much what happens. You're up there and they're like, now you are now master and guardian beast. Congratulations. Whoa. Go on with your lives.
And it does look like they're saying beast, but I'm watching clips. It does look like it's just kind of like an anime girl that these beasts are, right?
Yeah, there's like anime girl, there's anime boy, there's anime mecha, anime beast person.
Yeah.
The mecha one was pretty cool. I saw some of the special moves. The mecha one was it just flies up in the air, becomes a fighter plane, and then just like carpet bombs the arena.
Wow, hell yeah. You've got anime girl, anime boy, and Northrop Grumman and Raytheon as your other choices.
We call him Ray for short.
Yeah, this is Ray.
This is Ray, also known as Raytheon. It's intense. Like the anime girl just like shoots an arrow through a heart into the field and damages people, gosh. But then the mecha is just carpet bombing. It's like, oh my God, what is going on here?
Bringing a gun to a knife fight kind of deal here.
Pretty much.
The combat does look very similar though, so I'm glad at least that part of the analysis is still the same.
I think probably the biggest difference is a minor upgrade in the color palette and then different characters in a different story.
Yeah, it's good half of the game or whatever. Well,
how did you think half of the game?
What did you think of Summon Night Swordcraft Story 2, David?
I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah.
It has more of a grandiose story than I think Summon Night 1 does, it seems like.
It seems like it, but I appreciated the groundedness of the first one. That like it was not quite as focused on the wild comings and goings of like a typical JRPG story. But you said that like you were also able to craft your weapons in the second one.
Yeah.
It seems like that's like a pretty important part of it. That I like that is a pretty interesting thing to make one of the main mechanics in these games. Like I kind of appreciate that like crafting or smithing is not an afterthought. That's like integrated into like the lore of this world completely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's I do appreciate that there is a purpose to collecting materials that is very clear, because in RPGs I tend to often collect everything and I just have a bunch of junk that I don't use. Yeah. And if it's clear to me like, hey, you need to find these things to do this so that you can hit better, I will do that. I will do that. Make it clear to me. Make it simple.
It reminds me a bit of the mechanics that are in Dark Cloud 2, where you have to like take pictures of shit to get ideas for things to craft and then go out and like get the actual like materials to craft that stuff, which is, it's just enough to make crafting feel a little bit more innovative. I feel like I am somebody who oftentimes will totally overlook a crafting system if it's not completely necessary or easy to understand or doing something different.
I've crafted 0 potions in Baldur's Gate 3.
I did by accident a few times.
By accident? You just stumbled into the alchemy section?
Yeah, I was like, what is this menu? And started clicking shit. And then it was like, you crafted a potion. I'm like, never stumbled into a health potion. But yeah, like I don't do it in Baldur's Gate. I like barely did it in The Witcher. Like I just did it enough to craft the like poisons that you had to do to like kill monsters. Yeah. But like didn't really do it there. I did it every now and then in like Skyrim and stuff like that, but only for like a purpose. It was just like, hey, I need the one potion that will up this like stat so that I can get another level or whatever. And I wish companies didn't feel the need to add crafting if you don't need it.
Yeah.
There's so many games that like I can't even recall because it's just like it was such a non-part of the video game that like why is this in here? We don't need this to be a thing.
People love crafting. People love putting a crafting system in there.
Yeah.
Thanks, Notch.
Yeah, for real. But yeah, I am glad that they have integrated a little bit closer to like the actual core of this video game, which is neat. I think that's like a smart thing to do, and like just the novel thing to make the setting or the tone of the game is like, yeah, that's our deal. We're sword crafters.
Yeah, sword crafters.
Neat.
Craft Knights, baby.
Yeah. Summon Knights, man. 1 and 2.
I'm going to make a very nice macrame sword for you.
I'm going to knit you such a god-slaying sword.
I'm going to do some wood burning on this shield. Some sweet runes on it. It's going to look great.
I can't believe we played different video games, David. There's probably 15 minutes of us talking about this game where both of us were like, I don't really remember that.
That was happening to me. I'm like, hold on. What is happening here?
That doesn't seem like the thing I did. I mean, I think a lot of the stuff that I said still sort of applies to the first and second one, or at least the first. So like maybe that's two game analysis for one.
And now what I really want to know is, who is Harold?
Yeah. Is he in the first one or the second one? Or is Harold the sort of connective tissue between all of us?
Harold, the herald of death.
Of Chet.
Ooh.
We've been saying the herald of Chet for a long time.
It's actually not someone who was heralding Chet. His name is Harold.
His name
and
is
he is
Harold,
owned by Chet.
There's enough new people listening to the podcast that sentence probably just absolutely like factory reset some people's brains. There's some lore to the podcast that like you should at least go listen to, like I guess the October episodes to get a little bit more information on.
Should we like upload a wiki to the Discord or something with lore in it?
Maybe
wiki lore.
I think we should make like audio logs or something like that.
Throughout the Discord channel, you have to find them.
Yeah, it's like an ARG. You have to go find all the like random audio logs that we've recorded as characters in the Podtimism universe.
Oh man, that's good.
It's not a bad idea. I like that. This is kind of fun.
I mean, I do not have the skills to make that happen, so I will help in any way I can. But
you got the vocal chops, baby. You're the talent.
I'm the talent, baby. Watch out. I'm coming through.
Well, what else do you got to say about Summon Night? Anything else that like you liked about this game?
Summon Night Swordcraft Story 2 is absolutely superior to Summon Night Swordcraft Story 1.
Yeah, why not start this rivalry,
Absolutely better. Has a better color palette, cooler characters, grander story, more crafts to craft.
Listen, I like 15, 20 years ago, I would have bitten this rivalry just straight off. Would have like, yes, absolutely. Let's do this. My heart's open, man. The second one looks more vibrant. The colors look better.
Man,
like, it's good. Looks good.
Chase is too healthy of a human being to start this.
I fought these demons, man. I ain't letting them back in the door.
Beautiful. That could also be the name of the episode.
I fought these demons. I'm not letting them back in the door.
Yeah.
A little wordy, but it's not bad.
It has the good feel to it.
In the title, do I say Feat Summon Night 1 and 2? Do I say that in the description? I guess
Why
the question
not?
is, should I leave this as a jump scare for everybody to experience like we did in the moment? Or
everybody who's actually played Summon Night 1 and 2 will hear us talking about it and they'll be like, hold on.
I don't think that matches up with what I played.
Something is afoot. Something is amiss.
Hopefully people at least like listen through the part where we realize the error of our ways and don't just go on to Apple Podcast and be like, they don't even know the fucking difference between Summon Night Swordcraft Story 1 or 2, dude. Absolutely fucking noobs.
This is the first two games, one pod episode.
Accidentally did it. This is honestly, this is frightening. This is the power of the new Yoko Taro computer.
It was meant to be.
We were both in our own realities recording different podcasts.
I could have sworn it was number 2.
Who knows? Maybe we were perceiving different conversations too.
I even went on to the Discord to see the box art for what you posted on there to make
Like,
sure.
oh,
And I was like,
that's
I
interesting.
could have sworn I saw 2 on there. I was like, okay, I'm doing the right one. I'm good.
That's good. I love that.
All right, cool.
Thank you, Joe, for your suggestion of 2 video games.
Yeah, I got 2 for the price of 1.
We stumbled into doing both somehow.
It happened.
It
We're
happened.
here.
Makes for good content, I guess. Anyway, I genuinely did like this game. I thought it was like very good and like very fun. Very bizarre, the release schedule, and I can understand why a lot of people missed it. But like, hey, if you got a legal way to play Game Boy games, give it a look. It's genuinely very fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I enjoyed mine as well. It was great. It was very different. Not many games that I can think of that play like this.
Yeah, totally.
And it does it in a very earnest and fun way. So it's great.
Yeah, you get to marry Pope Pikachu.
You get to marry Pikachu.
I know there's somebody out there who desperately wants to do this. So like, this is your game.
To marry Pikachu?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least like
do
an Umbreon.
we need to encourage that behavior?
This is your game. Come play this one.
Hey, I'm not going to yuck your yum. I'm not here for that.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you.
Maybe we should both do separate outros. Both just stare at each other waiting for the other one's gaming wisdom.
Hey, if you like Summon Night 2 better, come over this way for this outro.
Go to Podtimism.com. It's a brand new rival website that we made.
Podtimism?
Podtimism. Video game Podtimism.
Podtimism. It sounds like optimistic body image.
Yeah. I'm okay with that too.
Podtimism, baby.
Hello, gamers. If you want to interact with us on the internet, you can do so at podtimism.com. That website has links to a bunch of stuff, namely our Twitter, our email, also a link to the Discord that we now have a home in. So if you are a purveyor of Discords, come chill. It's fun. It's cool. What else? If you want to help out the show, there's a couple things you can do. One of which is reviewing it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts. Either one of those will help the algorithm, do its thing. Put more pods in front of more people. Speaking of which, I do have a review of our podcast that was submitted through Apple Podcast, which I also have ran through Google Translate a number of times, one language into another to mangle it up to get a artist interpretation of what people had to say about our show, which I will now read for you now. It lives to name a new container for your favorite video games. If you like games and like the Silly Billy, you'll love this. And that was a 5 out of 5 review from Mike D'Antoni. Thank you, Mike D'Antoni.
Mike D'Antoni?
Yeah.
Mike D'Antoni himself? Pringles?
That's him.
The creator of the 7 seconds or less offense for the Phoenix Suns?
I have to assume it's the same guy.
I didn't know he's a pothead.
Yeah, apparently.
I like that it has Silly Billy in it. That feels appropriate.
That one actually made it through the Google Translate. That was in the original text of the review. So,
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Mike D'Antoni, what a guy.
If you want your review, Google translated to death, then you also can write one on Apple Podcast, and we would appreciate it greatly. You can also show it to a friend if you want to help the pod. That is pretty much the best way to grow, and the only way that we've really found that it works at all is for you to be recommended it from a friend or a podcast network or something like that. Speaking of which, thank you to The Worst Garbage for having us on
thank you.
The network. If you would like to check out what else is on there, you can go to theworstgarbage.online, which has a list of other pods, past and present, that were on the network or are on the network. Things like Can't Let It Go or Into the Aether or Frog of the Week. All, I will say, good podcasts.
Absolutely.
So, thank you for having us on there. Very much appreciate being here. It's the best. Finally, hey, you, the person listening to this, you. I'm looking at you, pal. Thanks for listening to this podcast. I appreciate it. We love making this pod, as evidenced by all of it, as evidenced by the sheer amount of episodes. And you hear it, you feel the passion, I guess, maybe. I don't want to speak for you, but it's coming from our end. So we very much love making it, and we're happy that people are here, hanging out, checking it out, vibing, keeping it tight,
Keeping it tight. Get it right, get it tight.
Get it right, get it tight. Anyway, that's all. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you.
Before we get to the gaming wisdom, David.
Oh.
Did you know in Sean Paul's Shake That, did you know he's just saying people's names in that song?
No.
He says, shake that thing, Annabella, is that part.
Can I shake that thing, yo, Annabella?
And that next part,
Jody and Rebecca.
He's saying Jody and Rebecca.
Uh-huh.
I was shocked by this information.
I had no idea.
Me neither. I was convinced, he must be saying something in a language I don't understand.
Yeah.
No, he got a call from, I think, his girlfriend at the time, and one of her friends were on the phone too, and they're like, can you just say our names in that song?
Uh-huh.
And he did. There's a lot of just people's names. I was gobsmacked by this information. Not to hijack gaming wisdom, but that it has really rocked my understanding of the world.
And you have a platform, so you just had to share that with the world.
Somebody needs to hear this, because I can't be the only one who didn't know this.
I had no idea. Where did you learn this? Have you fact checked this?
Yes. I learned it from one of M's friends who came up to Seattle recently. And I was like, there's no way. And she showed me an interview where Sean Paul is describing this situation exactly. And he says it with a little bit less of a singing voice.
Uh-huh.
And it's clear what he's saying. It is so bizarre.
Interesting. I don't know what to do with this information now.
Me neither.
I have this power. I have this knowledge, and I am burdened by it.
Real banger of a song, though, I will say.
I mean, it's a great song.
Oh, sorry. The title of the song is Get Busy, not Shake That Thing.
Get Busy. It's a great name for a song.
Yeah.
Does he ever say get busy in it once?
Maybe in honor of this frightening new fact.
Uh-huh.
There is no gaming wisdom this week.
Sure. Okay.
Just I feel like
just let that sit.
Let that sit. Think on this for a week. Let this one settle.
Were you waiting this whole time?
No. I remembered that fact that as we were sort of barreling towards gaming wisdom, I was like, I can't sit on this knowledge for another moment. I need David to know.
I got something to say here.
I didn't have a mountain. I had a newsroom.
Just wanted to yell it from the mountaintops.
He doesn't say something weird. He says Annabella and Jody and Rebecca.
Jody and Rebecca. Are those the only names he says?
There may be more. They're just the ones that is I'm remembering off the top of my head.
Wow.
Dude.
If you're friends with a famous rapper's girlfriend, you can get your name into a song.
We can say names. If you want us to say names, surely we're 100th of Sean Paul's power, but still just what
would be our version of that? Making people's names into generals of Chet?
Yeah, generals of Chet, or making bad video game sequels with someone's name, I guess.
Or taking someone's name and making it a Podtimism name.
Although Harold was in this one. If we got any Harolds in the chat, then you got this one for free, I guess.
Harold the Herald. He's coming. Got things to say.
Anyway, read the lyrics. Is the gaming wisdom, because maybe there's a surprise in there.
Anyways, educate yourself.
Get educated about Sean Paul.
Sean Paul. The history of Get Busy. It's important.
Take care, everybody. See you next week.
The most millennial ass subject.
Bye.
Bye.
PWG, the worst garbage, online.